Okay, let's dive in. You've shared some really interesting bits from a book focused on building daily self-discipline.
Yeah, okay.
And this isn't just about, flexing your willpower now and then. It sounds like it's positioned more as a fundamental shift, becoming a more disciplined person overall for growth.
That's the core idea, absolutely.
Hmm.
And some to get out there right away. The author's pretty upfront about this.
Okay.
They're sharing stuff based a lot on personal experience, and they do reference some science, but they make it clear they don't have, like, formal medical or psychological credentials.
Right, the disclaimer.
Exactly. They're really stress-checking with professionals, especially for health advice, which is, good context to have as we explore this.
Definitely. So our goal here is to walk you through these ideas, pull out the most useful bits, maybe some surprising insights.
That's the plan.
So the central theme,
Yeah.
it seems to be that self-discipline really shows its value, not when things are smooth sailing,
No, not at all.
but when things get tough.
Right.
When motivation dips or you hit a real obstacle, that's when it counts.
Precisely. And what I found really counterintuitive, but also quite powerful, is the suggestion to actively seek out adversity.
Actively seek it out. How so?
Well, the phrase used is befriending discomfort, deliberately putting yourself in situations that aren't easy.
Okay.
The thinking is, if you build up your tolerance for difficulty when you choose it,
Mm-hmm.
you're just much better prepared when life throws you those curveballs you didn't choose.
Yeah.
The unexpected hard times.
Ah, okay. Like training for the inevitable challenges. I like that. It reframes discomfort.
It does. And the material also touches on motivation, making a pretty clear distinction.
Yeah.
It really emphasizes intrinsic motivation.
Yeah.
Doing something because you actually find value in it, you enjoy the process, or see it as vital for who you want to become. That's presented as the key for sticking with things long term.
As opposed to.
As opposed to extrinsic motivation, chasing praise or money, or, just trying to fit in. The argument is that real lasting discipline comes from that internal drive, that sense of purpose, not external pats on the head.
That makes sense. But what if it just feels overwhelming? Like, how do you even start believing you can become more disciplined?
That's a fair point. The material offers a pretty practical angle on that. It suggests following proven plans.
Proven plans.
Yeah, like if you pick a system or a method that lots of other people have already used successfully for a similar goal, well, that takes away a lot of the guesswork, doesn't it?
True. You're not reinventing the wheel.
Exactly. Knowing the path works for others builds confidence. It makes taking that first step feel less like a leap into the unknown.
Okay. So that naturally leads into the building blocks, right? The material seems to put a huge emphasis on physical health, physical excellence.
Yes, very much so. It's positioned as sort of foundational.
And this is where that keystone habit idea comes in, I think.
Mm-hmm. It references people like Charles Duhigg in specific studies, pointing out how getting consistent with exercise can sort of ripple out. It can automatically encourage other positive changes.
Like what?
Things like eating better without consciously trying as hard, maybe smoking less, drinking less, even being less prone to risky behaviors. It's fascinating.
So fitness is like the first domino, get that right, and other things start to fall into place.
That's the idea presented.
Yeah.
Consistent exercise is seen as a strong indicator of underlying discipline.
Mm-hmm.
And, well, the stats mentioned are pretty stark.
Oh, yeah.
One meta-analysis apparently showed almost half of people ditched their fitness resolutions by June.
Wow. By gym.
And gym membership data suggests something like, what, 2/3 of people with memberships just don't go.
Oof. That really underscores how hard consistency is for most people. It takes real discipline just for that one thing.
It really does. So the material basically says achieving what it calls an ideal physique needs two things: regular exercise and a healthy diet. Both demand daily effort. And mastering those, according to this author, builds up this kind of reserve of discipline you can then apply elsewhere in life.
Okay, let's break that down. The workout habit first. The material doesn't seem to push one specific plan.
No, it acknowledges that's personal. The crucial thing highlighted is having some kind of tracking system and then just sticking to it relentlessly.
So consistency over intensity, maybe.
Well, consistency is the main focus. Maybe aiming for roughly an hour a day on average, but the key is making it non-negotiable. Pushing through feeling lazy, bad weather, social stuff.
Not necessarily aiming for elite athlete level.
No, not at all. It's about the consistent effort, the adherence, day in, day out.
Got it. And then the diet part, which the material suggests might be even tougher.
Yeah, potentially more critical is how
Yeah.
it's framed. And it doesn't shy away from how hard that is today. Temptations everywhere.
Sure.
And here the language gets, well, quite direct. Maybe deliberately so.
How do you mean?
It says, and it adds a note about sounding politically incorrect, that controlling your weight is presented as basically mandatory for building deep self-discipline.
Mandatory, wow.
Yeah. It frames obesity, unless there are rare medical reasons, as sort of a symptom of lacking discipline. The implication is, if you can't manage something as fundamental as your physical health, succeeding in other complex areas might be unlikely.
That's a strong take.
It is. The author shares their own story of being overweight and changing that, stressing personal responsibility for past choices.
Okay, so it's grounded in that idea that physical health is the absolute foundation, sort of like make time for wellness or you'll be forced to make time for illness.
It's something like that, yeah.
Yeah.
So the big question then is, how do you stick to a healthy diet when those cravings inevitably hit?
Right. What are the strategies?
Well, several practical ones are offered. First one's pretty straightforward: distraction and environment control.
Like the marshmallow test.
Kinda, yeah. The easiest way to avoid temptation is don't have it around. If the junk food isn't in your kitchen, it's just harder to give in impulsively.
Makes sense. That extra step of having to go get it adds friction.
Huge friction.
Yeah.
And beyond just removing it, the material suggests actively waiting out a craving. Maybe set a timer, 15 minutes, and force yourself to focus on something totally different.
Okay.
And have a pre-planned, healthy default action ready. Like, instead of reaching for a snack, maybe you put on running shoes or grab a book. Something specific.
And there's that psychological idea, too, the hot-cold empathy gap.
Exactly. That's
Ugh.
mentioned. When you're feeling calm and full, the cold state,
Yeah.
it's really hard to accurately remember how intense a craving feels in the hot state.
Or you forget that giving in often feels less good than you imagine, and then the guilt hits.
Right. So anticipating that, remembering the actual negative aftermath before the craving fully takes hold can be a helpful mental trick, using logic against that impulse.
Okay, what else?
The second big strategy is about making it sustainable. Don't make it torture.
The realism factor.
Yeah. It strongly suggests scheduling cheat days or cheat meals. This isn't about giving up. It's about planning breaks, postponing the craving, not denying it forever.
That makes sense psychologically. It makes it feel less like deprivation.
Massively. Trying for 100% perfection often leads to burnout or giving up entirely. Scheduled breaks make long-term adherence way more likely.
And it mentions potential physical benefits, too, something about leptin.
It does touch on that. Strategic refeeds, especially high protein, high carb, low fat, might temporarily affect hormones involved in metabolism and motivation. That's complex physiology. Maybe debatable how significant it is for most people.
But the psychological win is clear.
Undeniable. A planned cheat meal means you didn't fail. You followed the plan. It avoids that whole, well, I slipped up, might as well eat the whole pint spiral.
Yeah, that's a killer.
So the message is, aiming for, say, 80–90% consistency is fine. Maybe even better for the long run.
Okay, and the third tip for cravings.
Don't just fight them, try to change them. Instead of only relying on willpower, actively look for healthy alternatives that you can actually learn to enjoy.
So it's creative. Find replacements you genuinely like.
Exactly. You won't swap chocolate for celery sticks overnight, probably.
Yeah.
But experiment. Find healthy things you look forward to. Gradually, your desires might actually shift. It's working with your psychology, not just against it.
Interesting. This actually connects to a kind of side mission the material brings up. Intermittent fasting.
Yeah, this is presented as a way to directly challenge and build your willpower muscle, specifically around hunger.
By just skipping meals or fasting longer.
Yeah, like trying a 16-hour fast, maybe 24 hours, even 40 hours, according to the text. It's about experiencing that discomfort of hunger and learning to tolerate it.
Okay, I see the link to befriending discomfort.
Precisely. It helps you understand that hunger signals aren't always emergencies. Often they're just habit. Learning you can function perfectly well while feeling hungry builds resilience.
And teaches you to control that urge.
Exactly. But again, the material rightly includes the caveat. Talk to your doctor first, especially if you have any health issues.
Good point. Okay, another habit flagged as particularly difficult, waking up early. Or just having a regular sleep schedule.
Yes, this one gets special attention. Why? Because when you're groggy, half asleep, that's when you're arguably most vulnerable to choosing immediate comfort, hitting snooze over your resolution.
Makes sense. So how do you tackle it?
Two main ways are discussed. The cold turkey approach. Just set the alarm for the goal time starting tonight, even if it means a rough morning or two.
Ouch.
Or the gradual method. Shift your wake-up time by just, say, 10–15 minutes every few days. The author seems to lean towards cold turkey for faster adaptation, but acknowledges it's tougher initially.
And if you keep failing?
Then raise the stakes. Schedule something you absolutely cannot miss first thing, an important meeting, a class you paid for, a workout buddy who's counting on you.
Accountability.
Or even make a bet with someone. Put money on the line. If you don't get up, you pay them. That adds real consequence.
Huh. Okay. Mastering this, breaking that snooze habit, is framed as a big win for overall discipline then.
A really significant one, yeah. It's practice, sticking to a plan when your brain is actively resisting. Even if early rising isn't the goal, just maintaining consistent sleep and wake times. That itself requires discipline and sets a strong foundation for the day.
Okay, so we've covered these core physical habits. Let's circle back to that bigger idea. Building toughness through voluntary discomfort. Why is this so central?
The argument is that it's strategic preparation. It's not about self-punishment. It's about making yourself more robust for the involuntary hard times that life guarantees.
Right. So what are some specific exercises for this?
One simple but definitely not easy example is deliberately getting used to cold temperatures.
Like cold showers.
Exactly. The specific suggestion is a 5-minute cold shower using a stopwatch.
Why the stopwatch?
Because it sets a clear boundary. You commit to the duration and you stick to it, even when every fiber of your being is screaming to get out after 30 seconds. It teaches you to endure that initial shock, observe your reactions, and just stay with it.
Okay. And obviously be safe about it.
Absolutely. The material adds the caution, avoid actual hypothermia or frostbite. Common sense, but worth saying.
What else?
Another exercise.
Yeah.
Deliberately go without something you feel you need or are dependent on.
Like what, for example?
Could be anything, really. Your smartphone for a day, your comfy bed, maybe sleep on the floor, or as the author apparently tried, a balcony. Driving your car, try walking or transit. Constantly checking email. Try a 24-hour fast from non-essential checks. Unnecessary spending live like a quote-unquote miser for a week.
Wow. Okay, so the point isn't the thing itself, but testing your reaction to not having it.
Precisely. It's about pushing your psychological boundaries. Staying with the anxiety or craving that pops up when you deny yourself something habitual. You learn you can tolerate more than you think.
Yeah.
You start seeing what's a real need versus just a perceived one, and you break those dependencies.
Then there's rejection therapy. That sounds intimidating.
It does. But the idea is to intentionally seek out situations where rejection is likely.
Why on earth would you do that?
To build a thicker skin, basically.
Really?
To get desensitized to the fear of social disapproval or failure. Examples given are things like trying sales, maybe flirting more openly, haggling prices where you normally wouldn't, or even using online games designed for this, like the rejection therapy site mentioned.
So you just get used to hearing no.
You get used to hearing it and you realize it's usually not catastrophic. The author mentions using this to overcome shyness. Repeated exposure lessens the fear.
Okay. And related to that is failure therapy. How's it different?
It's less about social rejection and more about tackling ambitious goals where you might genuinely fail to achieve the outcome. Setting the bar high, knowing you might not clear it.
Citing Yogi Berra on the value of losing, apparently.
Right. The idea is that failure isn't just acceptable, it's valuable. It teaches humility, forces you to reevaluate your approach, builds work ethic, fuels motivation. It also counters what psychologists call restraint bias.
Restraint bias.
Our tendency to overestimate our own willpower and ability to avoid bad outcomes. You only really test your determination when things go wrong, when you face setbacks. Learning to pick yourself up after failing is crucial for long-term disciplined effort.
And a daily habit that reflects this principle.
The classic. Do the hardest thing first. No hesitation. Tackle that big, unpleasant task on your list right away.
Eat the frog.
Basically, yeah. The material suggests procrastination often isn't about the task being actually impossible, but about the perception of difficulty or unpleasantness.
So how do you break that resistance?
Tiny first steps. The author's example. If facing a big writing task, just commit to writing a few words. Or if dreading a workout, just put on the clothes. That minimal action often breaks the inertia.
That makes sense. The material also seems to suggest that pursuing difficult skills can build discipline. Things that take ages and aren't just about talent.
Yes, exactly. Things like golf, chess, maybe tennis, some martial arts, playing a musical instrument, gardening, reading really challenging books, even something like knitting. Activities where progress is slow, setbacks are normal, And consistent practice over years is the only way forward,
So the discomfort isn't always physical. It can be the mental grind.
or social or emotional. Like the discipline of radical honesty, avoiding even small white lies. There's a mention of studies linking less lying to better relationships and fewer stress symptoms.
The discomfort there is facing potentially awkward truths or disappointing people, I guess.
Exactly. Similar discomfort comes with setting firm personal boundaries, saying no. That often invites pushback, which is uncomfortable.
Right. And the discipline not to care too much what others think.
Yeah, it clarifies this isn't about being deliberately abrasive, but having the internal strength to follow your own path and values, even if it doesn't get applause. The author uses their experience dropping out of university as an example.
Okay. And even things like choosing not to complain.
Presented as another form of voluntary discomfort, accepting what is rather than venting negativity. And finally, actively working on shyness by forcing social exposure, talking to strangers, making eye contact. Public speaking framed as a really tough but rewarding discipline builder.
Wow. Okay. Lots of ways to practice leaning into discomfort. Shifting gears a bit, the material also talks about the mental side, right? Awareness and mindset tools.
Big time. A really fundamental idea here is realizing you are not your thoughts or feelings.
How do you mean?
That feels like anxiety or cravings or discouragement.
Yeah.
They're like weather patterns passing through. They aren't you.
Yeah.
Just becoming aware of them, noticing them without getting swept away is the crucial first step.
So observing the thought instead of identifying with it.
Precisely. Instead of, I am anxious, shifting to, I notice the feeling of anxiety is here, or my body is feeling hungry. That little bit of distance creates space for conscious choice instead of just reacting.
And how do you build that awareness muscle?
The material suggests various forms of quiet repose. It acknowledges formal meditation isn't for everyone.
So what are the alternatives?
Things like mindful music listening, really focusing only on the sound. Mindful walking, paying deep attention to the sensation of walking, your surroundings. Breathing meditation, just focusing on the breath coming in and out. Or gratitude meditation, consciously replacing wandering thoughts with feelings of appreciation.
So these aren't about emptying the mind, but directing it consciously.
Exactly. Consistent practice builds mental self-control, making you less likely to be hijacked by random thoughts or strong emotions.
There's also that technique mentioned, depersonalizing feelings.
Yeah, we touched on it. That shift from I am hungry to hunger is being felt. It's a mental trick, really, but it reinforces that distance. It helps you see even strong negative thoughts, like feelings of defeat, as temporary events that will pass.
Interesting. What about embracing tunnel vision? What's that about?
It's a tool for focus, combating distraction. You deliberately slow down and pour all your attention, all your senses into one single thing. The example given is picking up a leaf.
A leaf.
Yeah, and just really experiencing it, tracing its edges, feeling the texture, intensely looking at the colors, smelling it, blocking out everything else.
Okay. What's the benefit of staring at a leaf?
It's practice in consciously directing your willpower, your focus. Building the capacity for deep concentration helps prevent those scattered, emotionally driven decisions that happen when your mind is all over the place.
Okay. Training focus. Then there's the talk with your future self exercise. This tackles temporal discounting.
Right. Our tendency to value immediate rewards way more than future ones. Like $100 now feels better than $200 in a year for many people.
Why do we do that?
Partly because our future self feels kind of abstract, like a stranger. So it's easy to prioritize our current comfort or pleasure at their expense. This exercise tries to make that future self feel real.
How? By writing a letter from them.
That's one way. Or vividly imagining your future self if you don't get disciplined, making their potential suffering feel real now. Or, conversely, picturing your successful future self, how they look, feel, what advice they'd give you, and working backward. It bridges that gap, makes the future outcome more tangible.
Makes the future stakes feel higher.
Exactly. And the last mindset tool mentioned is building your compass, identifying your core values.
Like health, family, freedom.
Whatever truly matters most to you. Because without that clear compass, your daily actions can easily drift away from what you claim to value.
So you need to check in periodically.
Yeah, review your values. Then honestly look at your recent actions. If there's a big disconnect, say, you value health but consistently make unhealthy choices. That lack of integrity can become a powerful motivator to realign your behavior. The author gives their example of valuing health, influencing business choices, like avoiding the stress of employees even if it meant potentially less income.
Okay. So we've got the physical habits, the voluntary discomfort exercises, the mindset tools, but it's not just about being relentlessly tough, is it? The material addresses burnout.
Crucially, yes. It makes a very important point. Pushing too hard, too relentlessly can absolutely backfire.
Right.
It mentions research showing excessive work hours don't necessarily yield much more than, say, a focused 55-hour week. And the author shares burning out from an unsustainable writing goal.
So the emphasis comes back to sustainability.
Sustainability and gradual exposure. Desensitizing yourself over time is key, rather than short bursts of extreme intensity that you can't maintain. Growth happens outside the comfort zone, sure, but there's a line between productive discomfort and harmful stress or panic.
And the role of a positive mindset in bouncing back.
Huge. Gratitude gets singled out again here.
Yeah.
When you have a setback, like giving into a craving.
Instead of beating yourself up.
Gratitude shifts the focus. What do you still have? What did you learn? Who supports you? It actively fights that negativity bias, our tendency to dwell on the bad stuff. It encourages cognitive reappraisal, reframing negative events more constructively.
What about just feeling down or that negative self-talk that can creep in when you're pushing yourself?
Yeah, the material acknowledges that striving for discipline can sometimes make you overly self-critical.
So what's the advice?
Cultivate self-compassion. Treat yourself with the same kindness you'd offer a friend. There's a link made to reduced self-pity, referencing work by Olivia Fox-Cabane.
And practical tips.
Things like having a list of simple ways to genuinely nurture yourself when you're feeling low. Using power posing, the idea that physical posture can affect your hormones and confidence, citing that research. Or visualizing yourself through the eyes of someone who loves you unconditionally to soften that inner critic.
That's interesting. And critically, checking your physical state.
Yes, very strong emphasis on this. Sometimes feeling unmotivated, doubtful, or negative isn't a failure of discipline. It's your body signaling something simple.
Like being tired.
Exactly. Fatigue, lack of sleep, maybe the nutrient deficiency like vitamin D, being too strict with diet, or overtraining. It's vital to learn the difference between needing rest and needing to push. Knowing when your body needs care, not more willpower.
Developing that self-awareness, that intuition about your energy levels.
Yes. Distinguishing between the useful edge of discomfort and the signals that mean recover and refuel.
Wow. Okay, that was a really comprehensive walkthrough of the ideas in this material. We've covered a lot. Habits, discomfort, mindset shifts, all aimed at building that daily discipline.
It is a lot to digest, and the material itself offers a key piece of final advice. Don't try to do it all at once.
Right, pick one or two things.
Yeah, pick one or two areas that really resonate with you right now. Focus on getting consistent with those first, then maybe add something else.
And there was that very strong final recommendation from the author about fitness.
Yes, if you're not currently physically fit, the material argues that prioritizing health and fitness is the absolute best place to start.
Why specifically?
The reasoning given is captured in a phrase like, without a healthy body, nothing else matters. The process of getting fit is seen as building this foundational layer of general discipline. Plus, it gives you the physical energy and mental resilience that makes tackling all your other goals feel significantly easier.
Got it. A powerful foundation. Okay, so as you listening think about all this, about your own path, here's a final thought to leave you with, drawing from this material. Consider how those small, often uncomfortable choices you make today, deciding to finish the workout, resisting that impulse buy, having the difficult conversation, how these aren't just isolated acts. How might they be actively shaping the very core of the person you'll be tomorrow? How does consciously embracing temporary discomfort for a longer-term gain change how you view your everyday struggles?